We're conducting an oral history interview with Gloria. Oh, say your full name, please.
My name is Gloria Washington Lewis Randall.
Thank you, Ms. Randall. And my name is Ann Jimerson. We're doing this interview for Kids in Birmingham 1963, and I'm asking your permission, please, to record it and post it on the website.
You certainly have my permission.
Thank you very much. All right. Why don't we just start with asking you to tell us about your involvement with the Children's Crusade of 1963.
My involvement with the Children's Crusade of 1963 started in high school at A.H. Parker High School in Birmingham, Alabama, the largest high school for Negroes in the world at a period in time when it was university, when it was, what was it, the high school, just Negro high school. It was that 1900, 1901, and then it changed to, before it was A.H. Parker High School, it was still the largest black school for Negroes in the South and in the world. So I'm proud to have been at Parker High School. And what happened was back in May of 1963, which was a very good year because I was a majorette at Parker and I was in the English Honor Society and a lot of other organizations, gymnastics, track and field, and it was a whole new. Okay, I'm sorry. Did I lose you? Did I
No,
lose you, man?
we're here.
Okay. Did you lose me?
No, you look good. Just once you get it set, you can start back where you were.
Okay, so 1963, May, I was in class, in my English class, and a group of students came from Ullman High School, which is the other larger high school in Birmingham for blacks. At that time, since then, they have built, I think, a total of 7 high schools in the Birmingham metropolis. But these students were outside of Parker High School, and we were looking at them out of the windows, and they were saying, "We're going to 16th Street Baptist Church to hear Dr. Martin Luther King and Reverend Fred L. Shuttlesworth speak." And it's all about what's good for us, and it's about why we can't ride that bus, and why we have to sit in the back, and why do they drive off and leave us? A lot of issues that we as children had, and we would ask our parents, but they would always say, "It's just like that. Just leave well enough alone." However, they beckoned us to come out, and many of the students left school. I was included, and we went down to 16th Street Baptist Church. And that's when I got to see the great Dr. King. I had known Dr. Fred Shuttlesworth because I had seen him not only at Bethel Church in Collegeville, which he was the pastor, but I had seen him at my church, Trinity Baptist Church, where Reverend J.L. Ware was pastor, and he was also the first appointed black to the city council. So we had a rich history and heritage there. But we went down and we listened, and I was spellbound. I was spellbound. I heard so many things, and it was so interesting, and it certainly got my attention until we went back the next day. Now, this is against the rules, and we left school and we weren't supposed to. As a matter of fact, I was dating he's a football star. They called him a 3-letter man, Albert D. Hopkins at that time. And we were sort of an item at Parker. And I was standing out on the football field, and there's a fire pit light. And I was just standing up there trying to rally some of the people to come and go with me today. And suddenly I was just whisked off of there. And he was saying, "Go back to class, go back to class. You are not participating." However, my mom's name was Emma and my daddy's name was Lloyd. So that just didn't hold with me. So we went out of the gates this time. Before we were going out of windows and we were going out of the doors. But again, we went to hear Dr. Fred Shuttlesworth and Dr. Martin Luther King speak. And also during that interim, I was introduced to Dr. James Bevel, who was this young minister from Mississippi. And he was young, and we could really identify with him because it felt like he was just talking to us, the kids, which he was. And I think he might have been like 20 something, young 20s. But he was just he was just wonderful, you know. And so from that day on, we started going to the afternoons and at night. And that's when it came up about the demonstrations. See, because Alabama Christian Movement was a movement that Fred L. Shuttlesworth started in 1956. The SCLC was started by Dr. King in 1957, following Rosa Parks, endeavors down in Montgomery, Alabama, with her refusal to give her seat on the bus. But he's not given the credit that I think he deserves. Well, most people think he deserves if they know him, because I found that a lot of people don't even know who Fred Shuttlesworth is. And even when you look on Google or Wikipedia or anything, you can find some things about him, but they have other people listed as the big six of the civil rights movement, including Dr. King and Senator Lewis, which I know he was like a protege to Dr. King because he wrote him about him not being able to get into Troy State University. But Fred Shuttlesworth was so fiery. He was Bevel was like a little bitty Shuttlesworth to me, young. And this was like his dad, kind of like God and Jesus, you know? And it was just so exciting. It was just so exciting. It was the experience of a lifetime, but it was also enlightening. And I was thrilled to be a part of that movement. Now, I wasn't old enough to really be with the Alabama um, Civil Rights Coalition for Human Rights, but that's why they call us children protesters and refer to us as demonstrators in the civil rights movement. You know, those are two different things now. So one was started earlier, like I said, 1956, and of course, in '56, I think I was 9. So I didn't get there till '63, and it was just a thrill of a lifetime. I can remember Dr. Fred Shuttlesworth. He would always say, "If you aren't prepared to die, then you haven't prepared yourself to live." Kind of a little different from Dr. King, who says that if you haven't found something you're willing to die for, then you're not fit to live. But they're similar. So these are like great quotes that I remember as a child coming up, a teenager. I won't just say I was a child because, we had excellent teachers at that time, and they cared about their students, and they gave us everything that they had. They gave us tools to work with. So that even when I went to Tuskegee, I didn't even take placement tests. Well, I took them, but I got exempted from everything because Parker was such a great school with great teachers. But the movement prepared me for a lot of life. It also caused me to become hush for quite a long time because of the things that I experienced. For instance, the water hoses, the dogs, the the dogs being turned on kids, and standing next to a classmate who one of the dogs grabbed, and he went for his throat because he was trying to protect a young kid that was brought to the church by maybe a sister or a brother. So there was a lot of violence going on. When King was steadily preaching nonviolence, nonviolence, and he even said, if you can't be nonviolent, um, then perhaps this is not the place you need to be. So I'm reminded of the Bible at that point when it says, somebody slaps you, turn the other cheek. Well, I'm still a work in progress, and I'm still trying to work with that. And I'm 75 years old. But it was all worth it. People ask me if I had to do it over again, would I do it? And would I do it in it differently? But I think no. I remember being interviewed by Birmingham News, which is still, I feel, very racist newspaper. But this young lady who interviewed me asked me, was I afraid? I said, we were too outraged to be afraid. Outraged by the times and the conditions. And that's what a foot soldier is. We were they who were appalled by the conditions of the times. And I like to think that my contributions made a difference. I know they did make a difference in a lot of people's lives, but particularly the young lady that I met at the fairgrounds after I had gotten arrested. I've always told people her name was Janice. I do know her last name, but because she asked years ago that not to be, for us not to remember that, I can't help but remember it because it was because of her that I went to county jail, trying to protect her from the savage attacks of a police officer who was for no good because this young lady had had her clothes torn off of her and she had been mauled and they were trying to rape her. And several of us at the fairgrounds just jumped off our bunks and out of our little pads and attacked the officer. That's how I got to the Jefferson County Jail. Now, when I spoke about this, it was like nobody believed it. Okay. But I was so glad that even though it took all these years, there was a gentleman, wide CNET with HBO, who had specials on, who went and found everything that I described. They even sent me the pictures of the sweat box that they kept me in. And because I had rheumatic fever as a child, and I told them, I said, well, I can't do no cleaning no floors with no toothbrush. So the lady threw me in the sweat box and said, well, you stay in here until you get better. She didn't believe it. And though the movement said that once you go to jail, because that was a master plan, um, Dr. Bevel had set that out. You were only supposed to go to jail for a week and then you would be out. And well, weeks came and weeks came and weeks came and weeks came and months came and I was still not in there. Now, first I was told that they were praying for me at the movement and that they were out of money. It's too many kids, couldn't get them all out. But my parents would have gotten me out. But they didn't know where I was. So every time somebody would get out, I would say, call my mom, call my dad, and we give them numbers. And surprisingly, they'd remember those numbers because my mother and father both told me that they got calls. That's how they knew where I was. But I think that everybody who marched or participated in the demonstrations, who were particularly, put in those little fairgrounds and tents and things, I think all of us have PTSD because it was so traumatic. And I still have PTSD today, my doctor says, but I'm outspoken now. I've been outspoken now for maybe about 20 years, but I wanted to hide it inside because it hurt so much. But it was an experience of a lifetime, and I'm so glad to have met so many wonderful people from Hayes High School because these were the other girls that went to jail with me at the county jail that helped in the attack against the police officer. And I used to have a little would let me say things on radio during Black History Month, and I always would ask for them. I think I met one of the girls on the bus once, and you don't really have cars to ride the bus anymore because everybody has cars. But she said, I know you. And surprisingly enough, you may not believe it, but foot soldiers know foot soldiers. It's difficult to fool them too, just because you read about what happened. Because you had to be there. You had to have been there, to know some of the things that really and truly went on. What you fed and where you slept and what you had on and what the conversations were about. But there was a lot of camaraderie. One of the things that both Dr. King, Dr. Shuttleworth, not both, all three of them, Bevel, particularly, they said, you must stay together. You must stick together. And it was during that interim that I saw on the day after we attacked the police officer, a lady came in and said, oh, we're not giving you any breakfast if you don't tell us who it was. And I saw all these people take steps back, steps back. One thing that Dr. Shuttleworth used to say was, boys step back, men step up. I always like that one. So it was a remarkable time and it was bittersweet. I'm often asked, were there whites who participated? And there were. There were a lot of whites who were killed. And it's sad to say that they were called nigger lovers, but that's what they were called because that's what we were called, niggers, though we were Negroes. So whenever I'm filling out anything or doing something, that's my race. My race is not I'm a Black American. My race is not that I'm African American. I am a Negro. So is there anything you want me to say?
Thank you so much for that. A couple things come to mind. I had read about an experience with your father and listening to the radio and the DJs. Could you tell that story, please? And just talk in general about any support your parents did or didn't give you to be involved.
Oh, now my daddy, Lloyd B. Washington. They called him Baldy. He smoked a cigar, worked in the coal mines. I'm a coal mine's daughter. And my daddy was very supportive about the movement. You see, at that time, one of the reasons that the children marched was because the adults could not participate. They had been threatened with loss of their jobs. And, they're the breadwinners for the family. So, of course, they could not go. And my daddy always encouraged me to go. He was outside washing his car. He had a blue Cadillac, and he and Mr. Brown, who lived around the corner, his daughters marched, also Mary and Ida. But he was just washing the car, and he said, he called me to the door, and he says, are you listening to the radio? I said, yes, I am listening to Tall Paul. And he said, okay, they're going to tell you that there's going to be a party downtown in the park, which was Kelly Ewan Park. And that was your cue to come on down to 16th Street Baptist Church. And from there, they would give you instructions on what to do. Tall Paul, and as well as Thin Man. Now, I don't know why they don't. They will sometimes say something about Tall Paul, but he was really the DJ for the children. Shelley the Playboy, who I love dearly, was for the upper class students, and he kind of like was a playboy. He liked the young girls who went to hollering and screaming when he drove by in his car because it was made so that it attracted people and it made you look at it. But though he was very prevalent in the movement, he was not as big as Tall Paul. And people need to know that, and they need to recognize that it was Tall Paul and it was Thin Man who were really spunked the children to come out and gave them the directions and instructions that had been given to them. So my father was listening to the radio, and he told me, he says, so what do you have on? I said, I got a pair of pants and a shirt. And he says, well, go back into the house and put you on another pair of pants and put you on another shirt, get you a cap, because I think you probably get drowned today. So, and you won't want to come in here soaking wet like you did the other day. So I did what he said, because I'm always gonna do what my parents say, and that remains today. That's why it was one of the things I carry on with my children and my grandchildren. But my daddy was pro movement. My mother was not pro movement. Mom was a mom. Mom was scared for me, and mom was scared for herself, and she was scared for my father, because we had already experienced a lot of things, like when they bombed Lawyer Shur's house and they called in the National Guard, and we had a curfew in the guards, because we were sitting on the porch, we were talking to my current minister then, Dr. Jill Ware, and one of the soldiers hit my daddy upside the head with the pistol, rifle, whatever you call it, the rifle butt, and told him to get in the house and crease his head. Oh, that didn't make me love police officers or soldiers at all at that time. And we went in the house, including the minister, and a minister to Dad. So Dad was pro, and he explained to me, I can't go, but you can go, and I'll deal with your mother. Well, that event almost caused my father and my mother to divorce, because nobody could stay out nighttime, 6 o'clock. If the sun is down, you're either on your porch or in your house. And I wasn't there. My mom was frantic. So she was very upset with my father, because she knew how close we were, and she knew he knew where I was. And all she could see was all the things that had happened and here that were going on at Keller Ingram Park that day. And I didn't come back. I didn't come back for days. I didn't come back for weeks. As I think about it, I can imagine how traumatized she must have been, that her only child, when I was very small in stature, just skinny and tall, and wasn't there, and didn't have her arms protection around her. But what I did have was the arms protection of the Lord around me, because if it had not been for him on our side, I know we would not have made it. No, we would not have made it. Dr. King would not have made it. Shuttlesworth would not have made it. Bevel would not have made it. Lowry would not have made it. Abernathy would not have made it. None of us would have ever made it. It had to be a higher power. So whatever you call your higher power, he was with the children of Birmingham, Alabama. But the children of Birmingham, Alabama did make a difference. And the census that say that they were taken, where there was so many in a household where we were really at poverty level and stuff, these children turn out in record numbers. They fill the jail, they fill the sales, they fill the houses and communities up. They had nowhere to put us, and it was because of their dedication and their quest for equality. Man, I didn't say justice, I said equality, because that's what we wanted. If you can go and eat at a counter, why can't I go eat at a counter? If you can use a bathroom, why must I have a separate bathroom? But you can see today that they are getting back to that, because right here in Alabama today, 2023, there's still a county that deals in segregation.
Thank you for that. Just how many weeks were you actually in jail?
Well, I think it was more like months, after so long being, because I was dehydrated, right after coming out of, but my mom did finally get me out of there with the help of Tillman Levinson. Now, I've never known which one it was, whether it was Mr. Tillman or Mr. Levinson, but this was a very upstanding, store. So quality clothing and brand names. My mother worked there, and she was so sad, and she was always crying. My mother was a very fair woman, very fair complected, and she had long, beautiful hair, and she was built very pretty. She's a beautiful woman. And I'm not saying it because she was my mom, but I certainly was proud she was. But she just had a quiet way and a sweet spirit. And they said, "Well, we'll help you get your daughter because you're trembling and you're nervous, and we will help." So they came down to the county jail to get me, and they kept saying, "She's not here. There is no way that somebody 16 years old or 15 years old even would be in the county jail. This is for adults." We knew that wasn't true, and we also knew that lies don't, and we know today that lies don't care who tell them. So he left. Okay, mom was still upset, so he came back the next day. He says, "Okay, here's Look magazine. We know that she's here, and we have pictures of her hanging on the jail cell, and we have eyewitnesses that say she's there. Give me my child." So they finally gave me to them, and that's when mom took me to the hospital, and I stayed in there maybe a couple of weeks. So I stayed off and on months. I was in there months. Total from when I walked out the door in May. I think I came back out maybe July. And I remember that I did an interview with Miriam Elderman at the Children's Defense Fund, and she sent it to President Obama because she had never heard my story, not that particular story. And I thank her today for that. But now, since I'm talking about that, let me also tell you about the fact that Senator John Lewis, and Andrew Young were on a panel discussion also at the Children's Defense meeting that they have every summer, Ella Baker Schools. And we listen at presentations from different ones. Dr. Barber has been there, several people, just scholars, people interested in civil rights and human rights. And after listening to him, we always have that question and answer period. And I listened, and all I could hear was Dr. King, Dr. King. I'd never heard Fred Shuttlesworth, Fred Shuttlesworth. So when they asked for questions, my hand went up and they recognized me, of course. And I said, "Oh, I have enjoyed this. However, I would like to know, why is it that neither of you have mentioned Fred L. Shuttlesworth, the Dr. Fred L. Shuttlesworth?" And they thought for a second and they said, "We are so sorry. We are so sorry." Because you see, it was Dr. Shuttlesworth who invited King to come to Birmingham. And again, I say, the Alabama Christian Movement for Human Rights started in 56. SCLC was started in 57. So he was invited by him. So you know that he's somebody. He was a civil rights fighter. He was our great white hope. In this case, great black hope. But they did apologize. But I remember Miss Elderman stood up and she just went to clapping because and all that week in my speakings, I told the children about Fred Shuttlesworth. So that was a star in my crowd because they learned something different. I don't know if they'll ever learn.
Getting attention now, finally.
Yeah, finally. After he's gone, and ironic enough too, he died 911, and I was still a social worker at that time for the state of Alabama, and one of my clients sent me a picture with a drawing of Jesus, elevated into the heavens with his arms spread out, and the buildings and the towers and all these people, and he was welcoming them up into heaven. And I had kept that picture for years and years. put it on my wall for everybody to see because I thought that was so inspiring. You know, so inspiring. Terror in America. We have
Absolutely.
terror. Hmm. So,
So thinking of people who aren't getting their due, I've heard a lot of stories, and almost always the leadership that's talked about in Birmingham and the Birmingham campaign and in the Birmingham movement are the
mm,
men. And I'm wondering if you know of some women who were also out front in the movement.
I know Myrna Jackson. I know Myrna Jackson. Myrna Jackson, she's like one of my mentors too. And of course, Jesse Champion is dead. He was definitely my mentor because he saved some of his students from being harassed by the police officers only because of the fact that they were Black. I think it just puts a license on us to just hurt us for no reason. I know, it had everybody confused. You go into church and they're saying, love one another, treat everybody the same, uh, do unto others as you would have them do unto you. But I can recognize why they took the prayers out to school because nobody was following that. You know, you say you're a Christian, but you're only a Christian as long as you got a white congregation. You're not a Christian when a Black walks in or if a Mexican walks in or whatever. So I don't want to be a hypocrite. Um,
So
I
tell
try
us
to
about
love it.
Myrna Jackson. Who is she?
Myrna Jackson, she was the vice president of NAACP, and they the same year that Dr. Schultzberg organized the Alabama Christian Movement for Human Rights. That was basically because uh, that Patterson man who had shut down the NAACP, and she was strong with the NAACP, and she remained strong. She's listed in the record books, and uh, they kept the names of all the people who were like 21 years old. Um, but if you were, and some say that there were a few 18-year-olds on there. But if you were like 15, 16, 17, your name is not, recorded down there because you were a child. But Myrna knows the history of NAACP. She's always been a advocate for civil rights. She's on the board of the housing authority, and she does a lot of things. Of course, she's older now and she's a little sick, but she was a tremendous influence and still remain tremendous influence. There's a calendar called by NAACP called When We Walk, and I was honored because she was in the month of March, and they had me pictured in the month of April. So Myrna Jackson, she was foot soldier extraordinaire. She was a survivor. She was a victor. She was an encourager. She was so knowledgeable, and she still is. Because I'm talking about like in past tense, but no, she's still ever present pillar in this community, in this city, in this state.
And what was she doing in 1963? How old was she?
19, she was with the Alabama. She was still with the Alabama Christian Movement. She was going to jail with the rest of us. She was going to jail. She was getting water hosed. She was talking. She was delivering, telling you to come on. We got to do this, got to do that. She was your influence. You know, the guys can't do it by themselves. The girls gonna have to help. So she was an advocate for women's voters' rights, and she was an advocate for equal opportunities and freedom of speech and everything. So Myrna Jackson is just was superior and still is a superior individual as far as she's concerned with civil rights movement, Christian movement, and she continues on today with the Urban Solutions Network, and she's just a great person. Everybody knows
Well,
Myrna here in Birmingham.
okay, well, thank you for that. Any other women come to mind?
Women. The lady that was the secretary up there with and I see her a lot of times. I can't think of her name right now. She was always influenced. Oh yeah, there's another lady, the lady at Ullman High School, Miss Goree. Miss Goree, she was a teacher at Ullman High School, and she turned her back to the board when the students walked out, going to the talks and the discussions at 16th Street Baptist Church. Now, 16th Street Baptist was not the only church. Now, you had Reverend Porter's Church, Sixth Avenue Baptist. You had New Pilgrim, N.H. Smith. You had so many great churches. They gave awards to civil rights churches. Now, the reason that Trinity Baptist Church didn't get the award, even though we were very prevalent in numbers in the marches, was because my pastor and Reverend Woods had a little falling out. Abraham was, his brother Kevin was, he stepped in, but he wasn't his brother. I mean, it was Abraham that was out there with King and doing all the other little things that he was doing too. He was sort of like in the corner, in the back, like, you know, but there's so many things. I don't know why these people not remembering these things if they were there, because everybody I talk to, like Georgia Blair has a book. But I met Georgia. She was going to Rosedale High School in 1963. And after she got out, a lot of the students were getting put out of school because they participated. But as it turned out, like I said, I was in the hospital, so they couldn't very well put me out of something because I hadn't even come back to school yet. But she always had the court order where we were summoned to juvenile, you see. And from that day on to now, because the urban ministry, she called me and asked me would I go down to urban ministries and speak to a group of the Habitat kids that were here, and I did. And we'll do things like that when we know it. Same way as Carolyn McKinstry might ask me to go. She was the one that got me to go to Children's Defense, but after they got me, they didn't want Carolyn anymore. So because Carolyn didn't participate in there, but I did. So they wanted me, and I was in the movie, and they could actually physically see me, so that you can identify with things that people are doing who are doing it, so it's better.
Absolutely. Yes.
Yeah, when you can
Well,
see what's being done.
I thank
Hmm?
you for this tremendous story today and for sharing it with us. Is there anything else you'd like to add?
I don't know. You don't have anything else you want to ask me? I'm just full of goodies.
You are. I think that's my questions for today, but if there's something else that springs to mind that you'd like to put in there, please let me know.
Oh yeah, I just think of things. I just want to salute all the foot soldiers and all of the children that march with me, and not those who, because something happened at the church, or your daddy was didn't work in the coal mine, and you got a little more um, things going out. I want to salute those who didn't, and they just tirelessly and effortlessly uh, put their lives on the line. They took the the message from Dr. Shosworth, because they found something. We found something we were willing to die for, and that was our freedom.
Thank you so much. I'm going to
You're
stop the
more than
recording
welcome.
now.
All right. Great.